So, welcome to the CogniVerse. This is a video series where we'll be talking about neurodiversity, but more specifically in the tech industry. And as with the other episodes, we've got plenty of thought leaders in this space. And today I have a very special guest, so I will allow them to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Minhaaj. I am a data scientist and CEO of a company called Psyda, which is a acronym for psychometric data analysis. This is the field of expertise that I have, which is an intersection between psychology, data science, and neuroscience. So we help different organizations out understanding their data. Through the help of psychometric analysis and giving them strategies to actually reach out to those target groups and then advertise to them.
Amazing. Well, it's so brave of you to, speak about this openly, because although there is, it ultimately it is seen as, unfortunately, sometimes society does see it as something being wrong with you, and you do think, all these things, it's actually just different, and it's just a difference in terms of how the brain works. And I think, a lot of people go through life thinking, oh, I think this way, and thinking there's something wrong with them when absolutely there isn't, actually there isn't at all. And it's just kind of figuring out differences, and differences what makes the world go round and makes it a better place, in my opinion. So yeah, I am really, really pleased to speak to you today. I did want to ask you a couple of questions, just in regards to kind of your experiences, and just your thoughts on certain areas. So I'll just kick off with some of my questions. The first one being, how do you think, in your opinion, the tech industry can understand and embrace neurodiversity better? And what do sort of accommodations that can be made, do to foster more inclusivity? I know that's a bit of a two-parted question, but what are your thoughts on that?
Right. So was recently reading an article on the statistics of neurodiverse tech industry, and it seems like in total population, global population are neurodiverse, but they are really overrepresented in the tech industry. About 30% people who identify, which is a huge representation based on their actual composition. And that gives us a very good hint into why these people do so well in tech. One of the reasons is that their enhanced ability to find patterns and unnoticed and crannies in certain technical and logical problems, and it becomes a huge valuable skill for an organization. So people who otherwise seem rather handicapped in their life and who need some assistance, if you've seen the movie like Rain Man on the Netflix show The Good Doctor, there are some aspects of neurodiverse people that become extremely valuable for organizations, especially that are organizations that seek diversity in thinking that is out of the box. And that's where neurodiverse people shine a lot. And in order to attract these people, these companies have realized now that this is very, very important for them to hire neurodiverse people in larger numbers in accommodations for them so that they are able to contribute in the success of their organization. So one of the ways that these companies can actually do that is by developing awareness programs around neurodiversity. Like it's not something that holds you back, but it actually enriches the conversation within the groups and training sessions and R&D. And these people become so valuable when it comes to bringing new perspectives to the conversation that you cannot do without them unless you don't want to innovate, which is the whole purpose of the tech companies to exist. You have to educate employees in the company about how important neurodiversity is. give them case studies how neurodiverse people are contributing to these this course of innovative technologies. You have to foster a culture of understanding and giving room for diverse people to actually speak out their ideas and discuss those ideas. Why do you think that they would work? Why do you think they don't work? You also have to make sure at the grassroots level you have to have inclusive hiring practices. That means that you do not sift out people with neurodiverse abilities and neurodiverse challenges at the same time, because you can always make accommodations for that, and I'm going to get to that in a later stage if you're interested in how to make some accommodations. But once we do make those accommodations, the value that they bring to the table is almost unbelievable. And then you have to make recruitment strategies and that consider diverse talents and strengths, and you make a broader pool of candidates than those people who have those abilities, and they're likely to contribute something like work.
Amazing, amazing. I totally agree. I think it's about seeing a lot more value and actually seeing, making these very small changes. Most of the time, it's very, very small changes. It's not anything, huge that companies have to spend millions and millions on. It is actually something that you can do and just think about things in a slightly different way. So I totally agree with what you're saying there, and the value is absolutely huge. So that sounds completely on the same lines as what I think. Um, and then, in your experience, what are some of the common misconceptions around sort of neurodivergent individuals in the workplace? And is there any way we can sort of overcome these stereotypes? I know it's tough, but that's what we're all here to do ultimately, is kind of challenge these stereotypes as much as possible.
Right. I think one of the misconceptions, and that's a huge one, is that that is some form of disability. And I would argue that it's contrary, that, they have some enhanced skills that other people might not have. And in that regard, that's a gift and not the disability in the sense. Now, as for the mindset, you have to change this mindset that it is preventing you from living the life to its fullest. Because we have a lot of research now, ADHD and dyslexia, in Asperger's, in the whole autism spectrum, that helps people to actually live their life to the fullest and live a very meaningful life. I mean, we are the same accommodation that we have provided to people like Stephen Hawking, and see, what these brilliant minds can do to the world and what legacy they leave behind for the world as a whole. So we have to first think of them as someone with normal abilities, just requiring different kind of accommodations and assistance, so that they are able to contribute to the world as much as their peers do in their own specific way. So to dispel this myth that this is some kind of disability, we have to create awareness and training programs so that people understand that everyone is born with different gifts. Someone is a sportsman, someone is in technology, someone is in medical and healthcare, and all these people make the smorgasbord of humanity that bring the best out of offer to the world. So if we were only able to dispel those myths and create some accommodation for, like, creating quiet workplaces, and work from home abilities, and healthcare, and other accommodations that they would require in order to function better, I think we should be able to provide them. And I think this is by law mandated now, that you have to provide reasonable accommodations to employees if they're asking for that. I think this is only a kind thing to do, not only for neurodiverse people, but just in general for employees as well. That you should be able to help them do things that they want to do, and provide them accommodations if they deserve that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And have you got any examples that you might be able to share on successful neurodiversity accommodations implemented in companies that have not only positively impacted, I guess, employees, but also the overall work environment? I know you mentioned a bit about remote working there.
Right. So one of the programs that I can think of is Microsoft's Autism Hiring Program. And that's a very interesting and successful program in the sense that it highlights and focuses on hiring individuals with autism, providing tailored support accommodations for the success. And if you know, Microsoft has one of the best machine learning research program, and they have some of the great people there. And a lot of those people do have strains of neurodiversity, be it only autism or ADHD. And I know some friends of mine who, one person that I know is an Indian Kaggle master, which is like the top thing that you can achieve in data science. And she's worked with Microsoft in order to increase the awareness of neurodiverse hiring. And she has very good words for this program. And then we also have SAP's Autism at Work program, where SAP actually showcases individuals with autism and help them get mentorship, training, and accommodations in the workforce to where they can actually perform just as good as everyone else. So I think these are some of the successful programs that should encourage the rest of the tech industry, or let's say the global workforce, to encourage not only the application from neurodiverse applicants, but also in order to make accommodations, just consult with them and find out what would work best for them and how to get the best value out of that.
Absolutely. I actually haven't heard of SAP's program, so I have to have a look into that because that sounds really interesting. And I guess coming from the perspective that you have now, what advice do you have for technology companies who want to create more of like a neurodiverse friendly workplace, whether it's recruitment or the general operations on a day-to-day basis?
Right. So I think first step should be the inclusive recruitment practices, where you do not filter out applicants with some form of disability. I these days do see a question about the neurodiversity or disability when you an application. And I think, and I do understand that that's probably to find out these individuals, but I think on the same level you could use it to filter out people as well, which should not be one of the reasons why you filter out employees out of an applicant pool, because you want to hire the best one regardless of their disability. So one way is to actually actively seek neurodiverse talent through school campaigns, college campaigns, different disability schools where people are actually helping these talents to actively apply for positions that match with their interest. And the second could also be the employee resource group. So they establish neurodiversity focused employee resource groups to provide not only suggestions for applicants for new programs, but also provide them support and foster a sense of community where they can talk to each other and learn about different coping mechanisms, what combinations work for some person, that might work for someone else as well. And also the inter organization dialogue should also be fostered, where different organizations learn from each other's experience how to actually invite neurodiverse talent to their recruitment programs and how to actually sustain these employees, and maybe have an open house where a neurodiverse employee can talk to those applicants and tell them about their experiences and encourage them to apply for these positions. And I think that would be a great start for a lot of neurodiversity hiring.
Amazing. I totally agree with that, actually. And something for me to take on board, because obviously I'm on the other side of that as a recruiter. So interesting thought there. And what do mentors and leaders in the business, what role do you think they need to play in order to create more collaboration and more inclusivity at work?
I think mentorship is such a good thing because a lot of these individuals learn a lot from a model that actually plays out in the role that they are playing, or they learn a lot by role playing. And in that sense, mentorship programs become very important. So if you implement a mentorship program, you have to pair a neurodivergent individual with an experienced colleague who actually has experience working with neurodivergent people and is very sensitive to their trigger points, and they do understand their psychology and have some information from therapists also how to deal with these people. And these individuals, when they start collaborating and they start understanding each other, they work better. And the neurodiverse individual can also like be incorporated in organization a lot faster than figuring out by themselves, which is quite a challenge for a lot of these people to figure out things by themselves, because at some times their ability to accommodate is a little less than, let's say, their peers who are neurotypical. Now, we also have to have sensitivity training. That's for everyone in the organization to help them understand that why neurodiverse people are such an asset into an organization, and they have certain sensitivities and behaviors that they must take care of, so that they do not trigger unknowingly the sensitivities that they have. That can include quiet workspaces and not too much stimulation at work, and consistent breaks and things like this. And I think these strategies of mentorship and camaraderie can really help these neurodiverse people feel at home in different workplaces.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Um, and you kind of hit that a little bit of what you've just previously said, but what role does sort of education and awareness play in building a neurodiverse friendly culture, and how can we enhance this, guess even further?
Right. So when we talk about education on this topic, that kind of cuts both ways. One is education for a stimulation of neurodiverse talent for um, normal people, like let's not say normal people and neurotypicals. They must understand the value of neurodiverse people. So that's one education for them, and then other is, of course, for the neurodiverse people, how to actually incorporate in the workflow of an organization by doing things themselves. So one way to do that is continuous training. You conduct ongoing training sessions to educate employees, one for the neurotypical people about neurodiversity, and creating a culture of acceptance and understanding. And the other is the employee-led initiative, where you encourage employees to take lead in organizing awareness campaigns and events and promoting grassroots understanding and welcoming new neurodiverse employees by onboarding them to their departments, and working with them, supporting them. In that way, if we work on a two-pronged strategy where we work both on neurodiverse and neurotypical population, I think that would create such a harmonious onboarding experience and a work experience for both neurotypical and neurodiverse populations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you said, it totally does go both ways. Um, so yeah, is there any sort of specific technologies or tools? Oh, the room has gone dark. So it happens when I stay still for too long. But what sort of tools have you used, or any specific technologies that have been beneficial for yourself or any neurodivergent individuals in the workplace, and how can you incorporate those sort of tools, would you say?
Right, so that should be tailored to the individual needs of each person, because different people have different needs. Some people might need a fidget spinner, especially people with ADHD, to actually be able to, focus on their work. Some people might need regular breaks to re-channel and focus their energies back to one thing, because focusing on one thing could be a little bit harder for ADHD people. You also need quiet workspaces so that you don't become overstimulated, and that's more true for autistic people maybe, that a lot of noise and bright lights uh, are very distracting, and it enhances the overstimulation of the brain that interferes with their normal workflow. So that's important, so that you give them private spaces which are enclosed and quiet, so that they can actually focus on their work. If they needed headphones or AirPods or any other thing that cancels out the noise, that would be something that companies should be able to provide. And then also, understanding is a big part of that. If you need any assistive tool, so for example, if you need hearing aids for people who do not hear properly, then you should be able to not only ask, but also companies should be able to provide those things and then those assistive technologies so that people can function better in their job roles. And then finally, with all those assistive tools, I think understanding is a bigger component of that, that you must understand their special needs, and it should not be thought of as demanding, but also something that they really need to be able to function.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like you said, it's actually not huge things. When you think of the grand scheme of purchasing a fidget spinner, for example, it's not a huge life altering or company altering decision to make, but it can make a world of difference. So yeah, good example there. And then how can technology as an industry address the sort of more unique challenges that a more neurodivergent individual could face? So, that could be communications, teamwork, or something like career advancement. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. So career advancement is a very interesting question, because a lot of these people have challenges standing up for themselves, and they need renegotiating their pay scales and title and things like this, and they certainly need help with that, be it through a mentor or be it through a colleague, someone in HR who would actually speak for them. And I think one of the good examples is Google's Neurodiversity Employee Resource Group, where they highlight Google's initiative showcasing a supportive community and fostering neurodiversity inclusion, as well as guiding them and pairing them with colleagues who would actually help them negotiate and communicate their concerns and their expectations to the right people within the organization, so that they can grow as fast in organizations as their other peers, which is really important because they should feel a sense of accomplishment and continuous growth. And you also have regular assessments, implement regular assessments, measure the success of neurodiversity initiatives. They have a different KPI specifically designed for them, like how they're growing, how they're doing better than before, and how they have accomplished their goals in every year. So their semi-annual or annual reviews, are they showing improvement? There has to be a separate KPI for them that can actually tell both them and their superiors that they are progressing in their careers and they're continuously learning. So I think these are some of the strategies that companies should adopt to help those people continuously grow in their careers.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea as well, and it sounds really interesting what Google are doing. Um, what sort of initiatives or programs have you seen effectively promote neurodiversity in tech, and how can companies sort of measure their efforts in this area? I know it's quite hard to measure this sort of thing, and I know you've just mentioned Google as one example, but did you have any extra thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think let me speak to it from a personal perspective. Is that what does it actually mean to be able to encouraging neurodiversity and actually um, successfully incorporate people who are neurodiverse in our organization? And I think I would personally feel not very different from the neurotypical people in the sense that all of us expect a respectful, understanding, courteous, and encouraging environment. So this is not a demand that they're making out of nowhere, which is dramatically different from everyone else. So all we need to understand is that they just have small things, uh, small gifts that they are born with that require a different set of um, expectations from not only society, but from their workplaces, their families, their peers. They're generally very accommodating people. All the people that I know who are neurodiverse, not counting myself, of course, is that they're very kind and understanding and supportive, and on a very large spectrum of people, very undemanding in most sense of the things. But the few little things that they do actually demand of you, I think we all should be kind enough to be able to provide them all those reasonable demands, like quiet places. I think that should be a human right. I mean, let alone uh, be something that you should have to argue for, especially these that when you have this open workspaces, which I have never liked for some reason because there's a lot of noise, people crossing and visual and auditory inundation of signals that kind of overstimulates your brain. So I think these small things can always be arranged. So you don't actually have to have a huge demanding character to be able to ask for these small accommodations. And I think a lot of these companies are already realizing that, especially given the worth that these people have created for them. And I think these initiatives should simply expand to all organizations, regardless where they have neurodiverse individuals or not. And I think that would make the world lot better place for not only neurodiverse people, but also for society at large.
Yeah, I love that. I totally agree with what you've just said there. And I guess my last question, because I know you're busy, you've got stuff on, but in your opinion, what are the sort of key components of a really good neurodiversity strategy for technology companies? And also, how can we ensure longer term commitment to these initiatives?
Right. So I think the most important thing in those conversations is the leadership commitment. Because unless leadership is committed to providing an environment that is conducive to all people, regardless of their disability or not, these programs won't go any far. So first of all, leaders have to make sure and see the value in the contribution that neurodiverse people make in an organization, and that is vivid clear not only by opinion, but also by facts that only 4% of people around the globe are neurodivergent, and they're 30% of the tech industry. That shows a lot of potential there, and that show what value they actually create for the world at large. So given that, I think one of the things and that you should be very passionate about in the leadership is to be able to foster the community of neurodiverse people that come with different perspectives and that enrich our understanding of the problem that we have at the hand. Now, the second most important thing is the feedback mechanism, because these people are less likely to give you feedback because of their internal insecurities, or let's say don't want to create a belligerent situation, or just because they're introvert, they don't want to give you negative feedback. But you must encourage them to speak their mind so that you actually have some kind of feedback loop of what they're trying to say, and you need to incorporate that within your work style or communication style or anything else that will make them feel at home. Because if there's no feedback loop, it's just like a one-way street, and they will start feeling bad about their work, and you will start feeling bad about their miscommunication, and that creates a friction that does not have to be there. So in making that sure that they are communicating and they're speaking about their problems and issues, and taking that feedback and incorporating that in your work style, I think that two-pronged strategy would be great. So one, we have to have leadership commitment, and the second, we have to have a feedback loop so that leadership understands what their concerns are.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good idea. And yeah, like you said, it needs to go both ways, and people need to feel as though they can raise any concerns, or, not even concerns, anything that worked really well. If you were saying, I really love that strategy, I really love what we did there, I think that would be really great to continue. Um, that's also what feedback's there for. It's not always, negative. Despite, often it being negative, it's not always. So that makes total sense. And then, like I said, I can't keep you here all day. I'm sure I could ask you so many more questions. But if anyone did want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you just to discuss this conversation more, or ask for any sort of advice, or talk to you a bit more on the sort of consulting side?
Sure. My website is Minhaaj. That's my first name, minhaaj.com. You can go there and read more about my work, resources, and feel free to contact me. On my social media, I'm on LinkedIn, so feel free to follow me there. Drop me a message. I'd be more than happy to actually get back to you and talk to you about your special needs, and anything that I can help with. and hope to be in touch with you. And hopefully this helps someone who's listening and has neurodiverse background.